daughters, my kids call me, say, "Hello, Mom, how are you?"
Thank
so
the Lord.
It's the parents. The parents are not doing their job. You're teaching your children to be low class.
Kathy, let me end it with this. Hey, what's up?
Hello, Jake. How are you?
Bye, Kathy. Thank you. Have a good weekend. All right, let's see. Who's next on the list here? All right. Father John. Hey, what's up?
You tell me and you look like Bugs Bunny.
What's up, Doc? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, put it away. God bless America. But I go back. I even write handwritten notes to people that do things for me.
Oh, that's nice.
Just call. I mean, it's the way I was brought up. You do things in a gentlemanly-like manner, you'll be treated like a gentleman. If you want to act like an ass, you'll be treated as an ass.
Whoa. But you know, Father, when you say, hey, what's up to someone that you call, in other words, I call person A calls person B, and person B answers the phone, hears me and says, hey, what's up? It means like, tell me what you want. I'm really busy. I really don't want to talk to you. You're not very welcoming when you're starting that conversation, right?
Right, exactly. I answer the phone, Father John. How can I help you?
That's true. You do. Always answer the phone, Father John, regardless of what time of day. Father John, how can I help you? You don't say, hey, what's up?
Well, number one, I'm not Bugs Bunny, but
well, did you like my reasoning that when Jesus rose from the dead on Easter Sunday, he didn't appear to the apostles and say, hey, what's up?
No, I'm afraid that his apostles were saying, he's up.
That's true, Father. Have a great weekend, Father. The first Sunday first Sunday in Lent. It's good to hear from you. All right, let's go to Bill Meineke doing Car Care Right Talk Lines. Bill, good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Yes, thank you.
And I was going to say that the time when people ask me what's up, I would like to say the clouds, the airplane flying over, and stuff like that. Because, as you said, it's a very, very inappropriate meaning.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think, Bill, do you think this is a result that people don't speak one-on-one like they used to anymore? They're speaking more frequently through text and email and via social media, that people really have lost the art of one-to-one communication. Do you think that's a part of it?
I think that's part of it. When you have people sitting around the table and the kids are on their phones talking to their parents who are on their phones, I think that's a very, very large problem. And also, I was going to say, when I used to work inside the penitentiary, I was told I could no longer, in a man's penitentiary, I could no longer say, gentlemen, it's time to go.
Oh.
Because, that's you don't know, because of DEI or DIE, as I prefer calling it, you don't know which ones think that they're female, and then you're insulting them, and then they can bring a lawsuit on you because they think that they're gender fluid and they're women and all this stuff, and then you get more frivolous lawsuits.
Well, you know what? Perhaps this DEI crap help to bring about this, hey, what's up? Because you don't have to worry about gender. You just say, hey, what's up? It's not gender specific, right?
I think so. And there's also one more thing, is that they told me I had to use to speak with them, saying peoples, it's time to go. That's not appropriate
Peoples.
English. Peoples. I mean, it's absurd. And yes, that DEI stuff has infiltrated everything in those systems, and it's just a crying shame, because if people, I was trying to treat them, as long as they're not disrespecting me, I try to treat people with respect, even if they are convicted felons.
Simple respect for everyone is just that's the golden rule, isn't it? All right, welcome to Your News Talk America. Meineke doing Car Care Right Talk Lines. Hey, what's up?
Hi, yes, this is Marie in Millsboro.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, there is another statement that people make all the time. They've been doing this for years now,
What's that?
generations,
Yeah.
referring to women as you guys.
Oh,
And you have a couple in front of you, instead of saying you two or ma'am and sir, they say you guys.
well, you know what drives me crazy? You go to a restaurant, and a nice restaurant, and the waiter or waitress, the server comes up and says, "You guys ready to order?" That drives me crazy. I hate
Me
that.
too. I think it's so disrespectful. But
It is.
I try to address people by ma'am and sir, and open doors for people, even women. And I think a lot of people in Delaware do that too, and that's nice. But this you guys has been going on for generations,
Oh.
and I'm really insulted. I'm not a guy. I'm a woman.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
that's
Jay.
yeah, absolutely great point. But that drives me crazy. You go into a restaurant. You guys ready to order? You guys want to order appetizers? Hey, Joan, what's up?
Jake, my husband, Bill's laughing at his rear end dog. Anyway, may I start with this? Hello, Jake. Good morning. How are you today?
I don't recognize what you're saying, Joan.
I know you don't. And you know what drives me crazy? My mother always taught me to say please and thank you.
Mine too. God rest
No
her
matter
soul.
what.
Yep.
No matter what a person did, and thank you notes. I mean, I'm not up to writing thank you notes like I used to. And real quick, when I was in the emergency room last year, I was sitting there for 13 hours. Every one of the people in that waiting room was on a phone. They had to have, I wanted to strike up a conversation to be polite. And how are you? You know, if I wasn't being too intrusive, what's wrong? Blah, 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 Nothing.
Well, no, you know what, Joan? I have to admit, when I'm in a doctor's office waiting for my appointment, I do use my phone, but I use it like a magazine.
Of course.
You know,
yes,
I mean, I'm
realize
reading,
that.
I'm preparing, I'm sending emails to guests to get to book them for the show.
Right.
For me, it's time that I'm using to keep up with the news and what's going on. You know,
Yeah.
magazines and doctors' offices they're not really updated the way they used to be. So
No, I
people,
absolutely agree. And I was laughing when you were saying about your grandmother. Hay is for horses.
that's what she
My
used to
mother
tell me.
to
Hay
say
is
that
for
too.
horses.
Yeah, hay is for horses. Anyway, Jake, thank you very much for taking my call.
Hey, Joan,
And I hope you
anytime.
have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
800-518-9292. Your News Talk America, just, in several minutes. We're going to be transitioning into Digital Interactive Friday. And caller, we'll get to you in just a second. We're not going to have John Glasgow or John Tobacco from Newsmax on today. John Glasgow is actually on the air right now. He's filling in the morning show on Newsmax. And John Tobacco's at the White House today. Can you believe that? He's at the White House today. So they can't, obviously, neither of them can be on the show. So we're letting them off the hook for today, but they'll be back next Friday. That's for sure. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to Your News Talk America. You're on the air.
Hi, Jake. Bob from Cape May.
Good morning, Bob. Are you in Cape May or are you in
Sarasota.
Florida? Where are you?
No, I'm in Sarasota.
Oh, you lucky stiff. Go ahead. Hey, what's it like in Sarasota today?
It's beautiful. Yeah,
Good.
75 degrees, but
Oh, you're killing me, Bob.
it's not always beautiful. You know, I'm standing in the garage. It had 4 feet of water in it twice
Oh, gee.
in the fall. So
You got all
But anyway.
that cleaned up, Bob, with the damage that was done from the hurricane?
it's getting back to normal, but it's. I mean, there are so many homes that older people are just giving up on, and they're just mildewing, rotting away. I
Mhm.
mean, it's pretty crazy here. But look, just good topic this morning. The great Bob Grant, a huge no-no for Bob was you call up and say, "How you doing, Bob?" and that was, I mean, big waste of time. And Bob would just, sometimes he would just, he didn't do it to me because but you called with that greeting. Bob would just, sometimes he would just say, "Get off my phone, you
Yeah.
jerk." I mean,
He
Yeah.
did.
Bob was, he was super entertaining. But now, look, Jake, it's in smaller towns. You usually don't have this kind of impersonal attitude. You really don't. I spend a lot of time in Gasparilla Island when I'm in Florida, and everybody greets you, no matter if you're a stranger to them, whatever. Everybody greets you. No honking of horns. There are no traffic lights on that little island. And it's a friend of mine said, "Look, this is a gentleman's retreat here."
Yeah.
And it's just kind of nice to have that, where people are really kind. They take the time to say hello.
Bob, we've lost the gift of simple respect in our society. That's what I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Jake. I mean, and look, Sarasota it's a great town. Not that many problems that most larger cities have, but driving around here too, it's just the way you drive, the way people drive now, Jake. They are right on your rear end, speeding up to a red light. I don't speed up to red lights, Jake. If I see a red light change, I coast up to it. I'm not going to wear my brakes out. I'm not going to ruin my car.
People don't realize what that does to your car, to your brakes, to your engine. It costs you money, and today it's not cheap to maintain a car. Bob, I have something special for you. You brought up Bob Grant. Here we go.
Okay.
Mario was in the May to the Proviano Svachim. He can run New York State, but all the streets are full of hate. When he comes to town, here is what we say. Mario was in the May to the Proviano Svachim. Mario.
Hey, Mario.
Hey, Andrew. Hey, Chris.
Tu sei proprio non sfacciamo.
And they are.
That's right. Great. That was great. Look, the son of Svachim is coming back, apparently.
Yeah, he's the one that said the country was never very great. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Anyway. All right, Jake. Hey,
Bob,
thank you.
Enjoy the great weather, and we'll see you in the spring back here on the peninsula.
All right, Jake.
All right. Thank you for calling. Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me, my friends, that we just lost that knack of communicating, simple respect. It's heartbreaking, and I don't like it when I go into a restaurant. Hey, you guys ready to order? Hey, what's up? It really irritates the you-know-what out of me, and I don't want to tolerate it. We shouldn't have to tolerate it, should we? What do you think? Well, we'll be talking about it, and I did mention, fortunately, that unfortunately for us, that our two guests from Newsmax aren't going to be with us today. John Glasgow, who is on Newsmax right now. He's on the air. He's filling in at the anchor's desk today. And also John Tabacco, who's going to be at the White House today. You and I, will be in Digital Interactive Friday as I broadcast behind the golden microphone from DS2. Stay with us.
Official talk radio station of the White Marlin Open, WGMD Rehoboth Beach, Ocean City, and WUSX Seaford Salisbury. News, talk, and sports.
A message to Iran. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, from President Trump, who told Fox's Maria Bartiromo for her Fox Sunday Morning Future show he's hoping to avoid going to war, but has concerns about Iran's advancing nuclear technology, fear to be potentially building weapons.
I hope that Iran, and I've written them a letter saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
The president's also making a threat to a different adversary. On Truth Social, after another overnight barrage of Russian drones and missiles on Ukraine, he wrote, since Russia's absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield, he's strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until there's a ceasefire and peace agreement. Now, this comes a week after the contentious meeting at the White House between the president and Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff says he could return.
The president has said that there's a path back, and President Zelensky has demonstrated that he's intent on that good faith path back.
He's apologized. He said he's grateful. He said that he wants to work towards peace.
Next Tuesday, Witkoff and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will hold talks in Saudi Arabia with Ukrainian leaders. In an hour in Florida, the man accused of the second Trump assassination attempt has a hearing. Fox's Dana Marie McNichol outside the court in Fort Pierce.
Ryan Ruth was spotted with an assault rifle waiting 12 hours along that fence line of Trump International Golf Course last September. Law enforcement arrested him after he fled the scene, and now President Trump is looking for answers specifically about why Ruth had so many cell phones when he was arrested.
The second one, he had 6 cell phones. That's a lot of cell phones.
We got this update to the economy this morning.
Job growth improved in February from January. 151,000 new positions were created compared with the revised reading of 125,000.
That's Fox's Ginny Casola. The unemployment rate rose 1/10 to 4.1%. America's listening to Fox News.
When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money? A bigger house? Maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically? How you wake up each day? How you sleep? What activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, it doesn't just mask pain temporarily. It helps reduce or even eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. So give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. And it just takes a phone call, 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Wherever you're hurting, in 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4.
The station Delaware and Maryland turns to for local news. Here is another Delmarva News Update here on 92.7 WGMD, WGMD.com, and the WGMD app.
I'm Bill Robbins in the Talk of Delmarva newsroom. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Baltimore District has issued its permit for the rebuilding of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The Maryland Transportation Authority can now rebuild the bridge to reconnect the I-695 Baltimore Beltway and improve access lost after the collapse of the original structure. Geotechnical investigations are ongoing. Test pile operations, pier demolition, and trestle construction are expected to start this summer. In-water construction will begin in the early fall. That project will also need similar permits from the U.S. Coast Guard. U.S. Senators Chris Coons and Republican Kevin Cramer of North Dakota introduced their Choice in Affordable Housing Act to improve the federal government's largest rental assistance program. The bipartisan bill would make it easier to access housing choice vouchers, often referred to as Section 8, and attract and keep landlords in the program. As a result, eligible low-income families would have greater housing options and improved access to high-opportunity neighborhoods. Senator Coons says families in the first state and across the country need better housing options, and landlords need support to bring their properties into the Section 8 market. The appellate court in Maryland has ruled in favor of the Wicomico County Council in the dispute with County Executive Julie Giordano on the confirmation of the County Assistant Director of Administration. The court ruled that Giordano doesn't have the authority to act alone without council approval under provisions of the county charter. The council will decide its next move.
WGMD AccuWeather.
Partly sunny and windy, high of 51. Few clouds remaining tonight, 37 inland, 42 at the beach. Tomorrow sunny, increasing winds and a high of 50. Partial sunshine on Sunday and 49 by mid-afternoon. On Monday, sunny skies, 55. Same conditions on Tuesday and 61. For more on these and other stories, visit talkofdelmarva.com.
It started as just another Friday night. The Johnson family hadn't been together in months. Too many schedules, too much chaos. But tonight they chose Gio's Pizza. As the pizza hits the table, the stories began to flow. Dad's big win at work, Jamie's first goal in soccer, and Grandpa's old tales. The laughter grew louder, the slices disappeared faster, and for a little while, time seems to stand still. At Gio's, it's not about the food, it's about moments like these. Gio's Pizza Co. in Rehoboth, a slice of both.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD.
The Talk of Delmarva.
I can't believe it's Friday already. It's Friday. Digital Interactive Friday is back, and we are ready for a really big show today, my friends. I'm your anchorman, Jake Smith, sitting behind, yes, a golden microphone. You can see it right here. And I'm actually wearing a tie today, as you can see, dressed in my liturgical colors of Lent, purple shirt, purple tie, ready to go. However, we got a great show, as I mentioned, for you today. And this morning, out of the gate, we're going to be talking about energy, American energy, and also news yesterday that there's going to be some downsizing at the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, for those of you who've listened to me for a considerable amount of time, for years, know that the great sucking sound that Ross Perot talked about during the presidential debate in 1992, which occurred, American manufacturing jobs being sucked out of this country as quickly as the great Satan in Washington could arrange it. The fact is that we have right now a situation where the Chevron decision years ago has created these, basically this illegal fourth branch of government, this unconstitutional fourth branch of government. And I believe that the Environmental Protection Agency, more so than the cost of wages, more so than anything, any of the higher costs of doing business in this country, drove businesses, manufacturing out of here. It was the EPA that did it. And we're going to talk to our first panelist of the morning, and I want to welcome her in, Mandy Gunasekera. Mandy is a return panelist to Your News Talk America on this Friday. Mandy, how are you? It's good to see you. Thank you. Happy Friday to you as well. Mandy is the author of You're All Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. It's going to be interesting, to see what Mandy thinks about the pumping out of the swamp, which is going on right now. Mandy served in the first Trump administration as the chief of staff at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Currently, she's a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation and lives with her husband and children in Oxford, Mississippi. Mandy, let me get to you first, and I'll introduce our next panelist in just a second. It was announced yesterday that 65% of the staff at the EPA is going to get the heave-ho. I think that's great news for America. Obviously, it's post-Chevron. You were former chief of staff at the EPA. What do you say?
And can continue to fulfill its statutory delegated mission, which is to protect public health and the environment. It's not to create fear around climate change or say that they're the saviors of the global population because of global climate change. That's not the mission of the agency yet. That's what the left has been using to grossly expand the size, scope, and reach of that federal agency for far too long. So cutting the agency significantly, budgets and staffing, is going to get rid of all of these superfluous offices. And you'll hear some of the mainstream media say, oh no, this is going to undermine the ability to keep meeting environmental progress. But that is not true. They can continue to clean up the air, clean up the water, improve industrial efficiencies, reducing overall greenhouse gases, and address legacy pollution if they just focus on what they're actually supposed to do with a smaller, more efficient, leaner team. And I'm so excited that these structural changes are finally coming to fruition.
You heard my comments that the great sucking sound primarily of manufacturing jobs being sucked out of this country was from the EPA. Companies just couldn't comply with all the environmental restrictions. They would just be too costly. It's easier to send work to China where they don't have any environmental restrictions. They're destroying their own country. If they want to do that, that's fine. Mexico doing the same thing. But it is so encouraging to hear that the albatross that has been the EPA in this country is finally going to be scaled back, and that's great news. I want to welcome in another panelist, return guest, Larry Behrens, Communications Director for Power the Future, a national nonprofit organization that advocates for American energy jobs. Imagine that. Larry comments regularly on trends related to energy and environmental policies and politics, and has been published in The Hill, Daily Caller, Daily Wire, townhall.com, The Washington Examiner, The Federalist, and The Washington Times. Larry has appeared numerous times on Fox News, Newsmax, and One America News. And Larry, it's great to have you back. Can you give us kind of a long and short of where you think our energy policy is right now? I saw a very encouraging story on the Will Cain show yesterday afternoon about a liquefied natural gas plant down in Louisiana. It's finally, now that Biden is gone, we are exporting natural gas. There was a ship that just pulled up to the docks yesterday there on camera from Germany. What they loaded in that ship, liquefied natural gas, is going to supply appropriate heating fuel for 100,000 homes in Deutschland. Tell us about where we are right now with President Trump's vision with respect to our energy policy, Larry.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That was a perfect illustration of how things are turning around for American energy. Let's be clear. It was about a year ago that Joe Biden paused American liquefied natural gas exports. And he did that because John Podesta told him to, because eco-leftists on social media told him to. Those were the only reasons. In the meantime, in 2024, the European Union bought 54% of the natural gas from Russia. They were the biggest customers for Russia. So they're funding, they sent $7 billion to Vladimir Putin, and while they're also sending money to Ukraine. That is the situation that is set up when we undermine American energy. And so more energy for America, more energy for our allies is what we're seeing. To see President Trump grant 3 of those liquefied natural gas exports in just a month is absolutely fantastic. It needs to be done because our energy not only helps us, it helps our allies.
Let me go back to you if I can, Mandy. We just found out that the Biden regime and John Podesta, we just heard John's name mentioned by Larry Behrens, gave billions of dollars to an environmental charity led by Democrats that was founded only 5 months earlier. They received $7 billion of U.S. taxpayer money. How does this happen at the EPA? And will getting rid of 65% of the EPA staff prevent these things from happening in the future? What say you?
Yeah, well, they're getting rid of the office. That was basically the money laundering mechanism for that to actually play out. You had under the Biden administration, they created this whole new regime. They titled it the Environmental Justice Office so that anyone who was critical, they could claim was being insensitive or racist or one of the ists that they like to lodge at people casting serious criticisms their way. But nonetheless, they put this do-gooder title on it, and then they engaged in irresponsible at worst, illegal, or at best, illegal at worst behavior where they're taking billions. This is unbelievable. Billions of taxpayer dollars, washing it through and then handing it out in grants with very little oversight, and they don't really care. That was the whole point. It was set up as a political operation to expand the reach of the left, and their favorite excuse for that is, oh, the world might end if we don't send billions of dollars to this pet project, so just trust us, trust the experts, don't question the science. It's all a part of a manipulated strategy to excuse the illegal washing of taxpayer dollars to go to these groups in ridiculous ways. And so I'm glad it's been caught. I'm glad a light has been shined on it. But shutting down that office is step one. Laying off those people is step two. We've seen that most of them are on administrative leave. And again, it's because that has nothing to do with the legal mission of the agency. And remember, agencies can only do what Congress has given them the authority to do. And so this money laundering mechanism is not within the agency's mission. Getting rid of it makes so much sense. And it'll subdue a lot of this illegal, irresponsible behavior.
Larry, your thoughts on John Podesta basically creating a shell company that will launder $7 billion, who knows how much more, 5 months before. This is the kind of thing that Elon Musk and his army has been staffed to weed out. But from your vantage point, from Power the Future, what are your thoughts about this, Larry?
Yeah, well, I guess it makes perfect sense to send $2 billion to noted climate expert Stacey Abrams, doesn't it? But that's exactly.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And Stacey still has not acknowledged that she lost the governor's race, 8 years ago?
That's right.
The election denier, Stacey Abrams.
That's exactly what we saw. And the grift works like this. Let's say you start a nonprofit, and that nonprofit studies transgender butterflies in the wilderness. And lo and behold, a green bank is set up. That green bank is funded by millions, if not billions of dollars from Joe Biden's EPA. And then they send you a whole bunch of money. They will launder it through, just as was described before. And you can't tell me then that some of those millions or billions don't end up back in the coffers of campaigns for Democrat candidates. It is an absolute green grift where the taxpayer is on the hook for funding things that we don't want, and with money going to politicians that we don't support. And the EPA is supposed to be a safeguard. It's not supposed to be pushing a radical agenda, but that's what it was under Joe Biden. It was used as a sword instead of a shield to protect us in the free market environment. Thankfully, the free market is taking over once again. Americans get to choose what kind of car they want to drive, where they get their power from, and it's going to lead to more affordable, more reliable options. And the EPA will still be able to safeguard us, because I guess when you're an eco-leftist, you're perfectly fine with emissions in China, but you fight against emissions here. Americans do it cleaner and better than anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah, and that's where technology comes into play, right? Larry, Mandy, please stay with us. We have to take a break. More of our conversation with Mandy Gunasekara, Larry Behrens, in just a moment on Your News Talk America. Please stay with us.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Mainly sunny skies today, with daytime highs approaching 52. Winds out the west, 10 to 20 miles per hour. Lows level off around 38. Tonight, mainly cloudy skies expected. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times. Tomorrow, highs level off around 52. Mainly sunny skies Sunday, with daytime highs approaching 51. 60 Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 43 degrees.
The Sean Hannity Show, weeknights at 9 on WGMD's 92.7. You're listening to WGMD. Mike Bradley mornings on WGMD.
Millions of Americans take medicine like Ozempic and Zepbound. Many of them are overpaying by thousands of dollars a year. These GLP-1 medications for diabetes, weight loss, and more may not always be covered by your insurance, but GoodRx can help. GoodRx helps you save every month on prescriptions at over 70,000 pharmacies nationwide. Best of all, it's free to use. Check GoodRx to save on GLP-1s. Just go to GoodRx.com/GLP. That's GoodRx.com/GLP. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance, including Medicare and other federal and state-funded programs.
During tax season, your info travels lots of places you can't control.
W-2 arriving from payroll platform 3.
Everything criminals need to steal your identity is on your W-2.
Last call for accountant and home office, 1 minute!
LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points per second.
Tax preparation data centers for service to IRS. All aboard.
If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
As we emerge from hibernation after dealing with Old Man Winter, plenty of events abound. Hi, it's Mike Bradley on behalf of the Office of Worcester County Tourism, reminding you the Ocean City Film Festival runs March 6th through the 9th, showcasing over 100 independent films, both short and feature length. And on Saturday, March 15th, beginning at noon, the Delmarva Irish American Club is hosting the annual St. Patrick's Day Festival in Ocean City. Be a part of the celebration. And for more information on these events and others, go to visitmarylandscoast.org.
Based on hundreds of 5-star reviews, Gun Shooter Enterprises is proud to be rated by Delaware locals as their favorite gun shop. When you walk through the door at Gun Shooter Enterprises in Millsboro, you'll be met with a knowledgeable staff and respect. Customers love the transparent pricing of new and used inventory, the in-house experienced repair team, and the firearms training classes. Visit them in downtown Millsboro with plenty of free public parking at gunshooter.com or call 302-663-0838.
This is Dan the Medicare Man. Planning on retiring or turning 65 this year? Don't make a mistake that could stay with you for your lifetime. Call 302-503-7013 for your free Medicare plan review.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD. News on the hour on WGMD.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
You are connected 24/7 to your News Talk America at realnewstalk.com.
It's Digital Interactive Friday, and it's hard to believe how fast or quickly the weeks go by, and here we are back in front of the cameras, or just behind the golden microphone in front of the camera. I can't think of a better place to be. Well, let's get to some questions from our producers. If you want to log on and become a producer and ask our panelists questions in real time, it's very easy to do. Go to realnewstalk.com, register once, that's it. You won't have to do it again. Now, this first question is for Mandy Gunasekara from our producer, Bob. Mandy, producer Bob asks, the EPA thinks it now rules the environment. How does President Trump make the EPA serve American citizens, not rule them? Do we even need the EPA? What other agency could absorb them and save trillions of dollars? It seems to me the Supreme Court gave us a big push to help us by getting rid of last year the Chevron doctrine. But the fact of the matter is, Mandy, Congress still needs to pick up this issue and legislate, correct?
Yeah, I think there's aspects that Congress could legislate, but back to the agency itself, I do believe there's a role for EPA, but it is much smaller and it is much more focused on what things like the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, all these, there are a handful of really important environmental statutes that are the collective wisdom and representation of Congress acting on a policy issue of the past that we still need to maintain. And this deals with dealing with traditional pollutants, things like nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, stuff you don't want in the air. If you go to China, they're all over the place. And to your point earlier, suppressing economic activity just pushes it over to China, where all of those bad things end up floating over the ocean and landing mostly along our west coast and making it impossible for those places to meet traditional air quality standards. So those are the types of things that EPA can do. They do it quite well, but that work has been overshadowed by the politicization over the past administration and certainly seeds planted in the Obama administration. So a smaller EPA focus on doing those tangible actions that actually improve day-to-day lives, that's what the agency needs to do. We've got to get out of the business of, as the producer aptly put it, trying to control the environment or control the economy and even push cultural issues through the agency. It's not only outside of what they're supposed to do, but they don't have the legal basis by which they are required. And the Supreme Court did give us a huge gift in doing away with the Chevron deference and doing away with this mentality of you should just trust the experts and not let people impacted by the decision of the quote experts from being able to push back. So it's a balance and it's a much smaller agency, but there is a core function that's important and been successful. We've got to get back to that.
This next question from Bob, our producer, for you, Larry Behrens, is as follows. Elon Musk needs nuclear fusion power for his planned mission to Mars. Do you support rapid development of practical nuclear fusion power for the United States and the world? Does President Trump also support this? The USA must have nuclear fusion power as soon as possible. Bob, by the way, just to let you know, is an engineer. So that is very much like an engineer's question, right, Larry?
It is. And the short answer is yes. I mean, absolutely. We need power that will sustain our way of life, meet our current demands, and is something that is affordable and reliable for Americans to choose. What we don't need is government putting their fingers on the scale saying this source, not that source of power. And let's be clear, when we see eco-leftists say we don't like emissions, and then you point to nuclear, well, then they'll say, oh, well, it just doesn't work because, and then they, their mind tries to shift without a clutch because it's never been about trying to stop emissions for them. It's all about political power and the grift. And so when you point to nuclear as something that doesn't have the emissions, they still can't get behind it. The fact of the matter is the federal government is in, in ways of so many energy producers. If you want to send up an oil well or natural gas plant near national forest, you have to deal with Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior. You have to even sometimes deal with the EPA, and that's just on the federal level, not counting the state. So there's a whole lot of redundancies that could be removed, but absolutely nuclear should be a part of that mix where it makes sense.
Larry, I have a question for you, and this is just something that I've seen in the last few weeks. Gasoline prices at the pump have come down about 25 cents a gallon from where I've set. Why did they come down so quickly? Was it that the fossil fuel industry, the oil companies, see a friendlier business environment from the Trump administration, and prices are now starting to drop as they did back in 2017? What's the reason that gasoline prices have dropped so quickly, so fast?
Well, let's be clear. Part of that is seasonal. We're not into the crazy driving part of the season yet. Winter, more folks stay home. But yes, part of that is too the perception, the knowledge of what President Trump did during his first term and what he's going to do in this term in not getting in the way of American fuel development. The perception does so much for the prices of understanding that we will be able to meet our demand needs for fossil fuels for at least the next 4 years, because President Trump is going to move that production forward. And so, yes, that perception is absolutely part of it. I think, we should anticipate that it should drop more. We remember what those gas prices were like during President Trump's first term. Joe Biden tried to make us forget because he led us to the highest gas prices in history, but we know what is possible. And so I definitely see it continuing to fall.
Mandy, you wrote a book, Y'all Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. The pump is on, the swamp is being drained. How do you, or what report card do you give Elon Musk and President Trump for at least doing something that has never been done in recent American history, draining the swamp, the illegal fourth branch of government?
Yeah, I give them an A+ because they're off to an amazing start. And not only are they going in and they're meeting with the teams of politicals at each of the agencies and asking them to weigh in with careers. So this isn't in the news. Careers that have been working at these agencies that too have been frustrated by inefficiencies, they are helping in this process as well to figure out how do you make the agencies work better. So it's great that these structural reforms are actually happening. The other important piece is the public education, shining a light on the extent of the waste, the fraud, and the abuse. It makes you wonder, what have those inspector generals been doing for all these years? Because a lot of this occurred under their supposed,
what's their function? What is their function if they haven't been doing? I mean, that's why you have independent audits, and that clearly is what this is, right, Mandy?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's long overdue. It's a wonderful thing to see. I guarantee you the next step, once they figure out which offices to get rid of, it's going to be which offices and which agencies to relocate. And I think moving a lot of those out of the Washington, D.C. will be hugely beneficial across the board. And I'm excited to see what they ultimately come up with.
We have new, Larry, we have new department heads at Energy. And that is, I had it right here. Okay. We have Wright, who is the Energy Secretary, correct?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And also Doug Burgum, and he is the Interior Secretary. What grade would you give them?
A+ so far, because
wow.
It is. And I know
you're both really happy with what's going on in Washington right now.
We are, with Secretary Wright, you have someone who has actually been in the energy development business, not a politician, and understands the way that the federal government gets in the way of getting the job done. And so being able to remove a whole lot of that red tape is critical. In Governor Burgum, you have a governor who was from an energy producing state. And understands, again, how the federal government gets in the way. It seems it's so cliche, but it is so simple. The Biden administration found a way to use every nook and cranny of his bureaucratic army to get in the way of what Americans want when it comes.
That was by design, Larry. No question. That was by design. We've got to leave it right there. Mandy Gunasekara, Larry Behrens, thank you for a very interesting discussion this morning. I want to try to keep energy on the forefront, because if we are going to make a dent into the indebtedness of this country, it's going to be by way of our natural resources, which comes from energy. And thank you so much, and hopefully we'll both have you on. We'll have you both on again very soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Great to be with you.
Thanks. Have a great day. You're watching Your News Talk America, your home for freedom, liberty, and, of course, the truth.
Here is the marine forecast from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center. A gale warning continues early today. Mostly sunny with highs approaching 50 degrees. And on the water, west winds will be strong, 10 to 25 knots, seas 4 to 6 feet. The current water temperature is 41 degrees. At Cambridge, high tide 10:15 a.m., low tide 5:20 p.m., high tide 10:31 p.m. And at Rehoboth Beach, low tide 8:07 a.m., high tide 1:55 p.m., low tide 7:59 p.m.
Hi, this is the Rehoboth Foodie. Join me on Saturday afternoons from 2 to 4 on WGMD 92.7, the talk, or rather, the food of Delmarva.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Susan Lee, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks opened lower. The monthly employment report came in slightly weaker than expected, though job growth improved from January with 151,000 positions created. The unemployment rate rose to 4.1%. The NASDAQ says it's working on allowing 24-hour trading 5 days a week. The Crypto Summit is today at the White House. Bitcoin has topped $89,000. Hewlett-Packard Enterprises reported a disappointing quarter. It's planning to cut 2,500 jobs in the next couple of years. Though tech giant Broadcom's quarter topped expectations. Wayfair is closing its tech center in Austin, Texas, and will eliminate 340 jobs. Land's End could be sold or merged. The company is looking into options for the business. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Cosolda. Invested in you.
National security is at risk, and China controls most of the world's supply of antimony, a critical metal for military and defense technology. Military Metals Corp is taking action and securing a Western-controlled supply with projects in Europe and North America. Critical minerals are the backbone of modern defense. Now's the time to pay attention. The stock trades on the OTC under ticker MILIF. Call your broker today or go to www.militarymetalscorp.com to learn more.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
What are the political ramifications for the Demcom's behavior on the House floor Tuesday night? Are they past their breaking point? That's a bit of a pun because we are going to ask that question of someone that knows a lot about breaking points. His name is David Zier. He's the host of Breaking Point on Real America's Voice News. His show airs on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. David, that was quite a spectacle on Tuesday night, wasn't it?
Yeah, just another day in paradise with the Democrats.
You know, I asked Roger Stone, he was on with me yesterday, because I wrote a monologue that I think the Demcoms, that's what I call them, you know that I call them that, I think the party is done. Donald Trump and we have beaten them. They went to war with us, they declared a civil war on us, and they tried to do everything to him, including kill him. They couldn't. He's back, he's crushing them, which they needed to be, and they are behaving like soldiers who have been defeated in battle and are forced to walk home rather than be transported home back to their hometowns. How do you see it, David?
We're at DemCon 1. That's what I say. Listen, they're just awful and going against the grain of what most Americans want. Recent polling show that 3/4 of Americans support what Trump is doing. And in a stunning moment, Jasmine Crockett asked the mayors, whether there are any immigrants roaming around their cities with 34 felony convictions, trying to make that joke about Trump, but they always fall flat because the people don't care about that. They care that illegal immigrants are murdering Americans. That's what they care about. And Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow's comments this week about the speech was aberrant. They should be canned for it. and Congressman and community organizer, whatever that means, Latifah Simon of California, walking out in fake protest, falsely claiming that Trump is cutting Social Security. The same lies the Dems said during Reagan, right? Grandma's going to have to eat cat food. And 15 years ago against Paul Ryan, when they said GOP will
push her off the cliff, right?
In a wheelchair. It's the same faux outrage because they have nothing else. And who can forget the cringy Choose Your Fighter TikTok of AOC, Susan Lee.
Who told them to do that?
And brain surgeon Jasmine Crockett, who are all roasted on social media for pretending to be video game characters to choose from fight, from to fight Trump, like in Mortal Kombat or something. So unbelievable.
But David, they're fighting the American people. He won the popular vote, and he won every swing state. They are fighting the American people. That's what the American people perceive. And if you take a look at the CBS and CNN polling, it's just not Republicans who loved what President Trump said the other night. It was 27% of independents, 20% of Democrats. Just who are they talking to?
Well, listen, it gets worse than that. And I want to ask you a question, Jake, this morning.
Okay.
Will the real Al Green please stand up? Will the real Al Green please stand up? Instead of the Representative Al Green singing "We Shall Overcome," I wish it was the Reverend Al Green standing up and belting out, "So tired of being alone. I'm so tired."
I like that Al Green much better, David.
Yeah, and the Al Green that I used to play on my dad's turntable every weekend in the 70s as I rifled through my father's epic 70s vinyl record collection of Saturday Night Fever, the Grease soundtrack, the Village People, Kool and the Gang, and Al Green. But who the heck is Al Green to sing "We Shall Overcome"? What a dishonor to the civil rights movement. That became a symbol for them in 1959 for that movement. But the silver lining is 10 moderate style Dems join the House Republicans to censure him.
The thing that bothered me most was sitting here in DS2 in this studio yesterday and looking at my monitor and seeing what the Demcoms did to shield the other Al Green, and he not responding to the Speaker of the House telling him to come up for his admonishment to the Speaker's podium, and he let them get away with it. Mike Johnson, there's just no excuse for him letting him get away with it. The Republicans are saying, well, we're going to come back. We're going to respond to all of those who were singing "We Shall Overcome." They're not going to do anything. That's the problem. There's no accountability for this kind of behavior in the House of Representatives. And the only reason why Al Green, the other Al Green, was escorted out off the House floor the other night was this was on national TV, and he was waving a cane in a threatening manner at the President of the United States. That's it, isn't it, David?
Yeah, well, what do they have to overcome? Like it's some type of racist thing. The only thing they have to overcome is the American people are rejecting them en masse. I mean, even Gavin Newsom, who's failed EV diplomacy, his failed EV mandate, they're not selling electric cars in California. They're not going to meet his baby 2035 gas-powered car elimination. And Trump's going to get rid of clean cars too, which is going to take away the waiver where manufacturers can ship less gas-powered cars to California. So he has a hole in his balloon, and now he has to come to the middle, right? Like a Clinton-esque, moving towards the center, saying, I don't support men and women's sports. Meanwhile, he had the most radical LGBT.
Oh, absolutely.
In San Francisco when he was mayor.
Do what I say, not as I do, right, David? Isn't that it?
Well, it is, and this coordinated 22 Democrat senator video with this stupid social media microphone, like they're Gen Zers, they don't even know how to talk into it, and they're supposed to look like they're cool. They constantly fall on their face because they can't just accept the fact that Trump doesn't care about party politics. He only wants the best for the United States. He doesn't care anymore. They tried to kill him twice. He doesn't care. He wants to do what the responsible thing for America. And there's just no two ways about it, in my opinion.
David, you're based in New York. You're based on Long Island. You and I used to live not far from each other, but you traveled across this country when President Trump was running for re-election. You talked to people across the country from every walk of life. And did you see the leanings that these people had towards Trump that may not have voted for him the first time? And we're now seeing them show up positively on a CBS poll that says 76% of those polled felt that the speech Tuesday night was favorable. They heard something in it that they liked. You went across. You traveled this country. Did you see any inkling of that when you were traveling last year?
I've covered about 200 events for RAV, about 150 to 180 of them with Trump rallies and other Trump events. I've been to 38 states with the campaign. I've interviewed 3,000 people on the ground across America, and all of my Uber rides, except for a handful, they're Trump supporters. They're all hurting. These people aren't delivering pizza during the day, these Uber drivers. They're accountants. I talked to an Uber driver yesterday who was a mechanical engineer. He can't get a job.
Are you serious?
100%. And that's what these people are doing. You know, people with PhDs. Oh, I got a PhD in psychology. Yeah, good move, right? You can't get a job doing that. So these people can't get jobs. They can't work. You know, and the overwhelming message for people around the United States, and my journeys to Wisconsin, to the Blue Wall states, to Iowa, and all these other states, even left-leaning kind of states, you know, were that they had to sell their houses and move in with their parents because even though they're making more money, they can't keep up with the inflation and they can't pursue the American dream. And they're in the same spot 17 years after the 2008 financial crisis. They have not made forward progress. And we know for a fact that the net gain for real Americans have not been anything for full-time jobs. It's been part-time, it's been government work, and it's for foreigners. So, you know, people are at their wits' end. They can't go anymore like this. It's going to be a long time for this to turn around, but the only one helping them is Donald Trump.
And yes, and he every day he is categorically in their corner, and he is in a corner America first. And it's starting. I just think it's starting to register with those Americans who were never Trumpers. Some of them are realizing that Trump is their ticket to fix what has been ailing this country, right?
Yeah, well, that's what put them over the top. You know, take North Carolina. You can make $100,000 a year. They have tech centers, Greensboro, High Point, all these places, the Raleigh Research Triangle, right? You can make $100,000, but you can never buy a house, you know, because nobody wants to sell their house. The average price is $460,000. Interest rates are still 6.8%, something like that. You know, you can't buy a house. You can't pursue the American dream. The unaffiliated voters are hurting. The young people are hurting. The minority voters came off for Donald Trump. And that's the resounding support for this agenda. I think people deep down, even if they're lefty liberals, love what is going on.
Again, at least some of them do, and that was reflected in the CBS and CNN polling on Tuesday night. David, we have a question from one of our producers on our dial board, and he posts the following question. Bob, President Trump's address Tuesday night, and this question is directed to you. President Trump's address Tuesday night showed great kindness at times, but brought out his big stick when needed. Does he need his kind side to win over moderate Democrats and his big stick to destroy Democrat communists forever? What say you? I just think we're New Yorkers. We know that Donald Trump has always been a kind man, has always done special things for people in need. That side came out Tuesday night. That side doesn't come out a lot. A lot of people don't see it. But how do you answer that question, David?
I thought Trump was, if not at his best, one of his best the other night, and he was compassionate. I mean, look what he did. Look at all the people he brought there who suffered at the hands of crimes from illegal aliens, who suffered naming the park after Nungare, you know, was murdered under the bridge for 2 hours, and talking about this kid with the cancer that the Dems, had a pathetic response to.
Oh, man.
You know, he's always uplifting. I think Trump is always uplifting. You know, his speeches overall, even though he can name call, I've covered probably, 150 of them on the road, and they're always about what the human can achieve, the rugged individualism that built this country. You fail 9 out of 10 times. You're not owed anything. You're going to fail, but eventually you'll make it if you put your nose to the grindstone.
Right.
I mean, that's really the message from him, and he definitely has a way to relate to the common person because, you know, he's a builder from New York. His father was a builder with a tiny office in the back of a restaurant in Brooklyn. It wasn't his big fancy place. He grew up in a moderate house in Jamaica Estates in Queens. regardless of how much money he has, he's always been, philanthropic. And I think his message generally is positive.
David Zier is joining us, host of Breaking Point on Real America's Voice News, which airs tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. More of our discussion with David in just a moment on your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. We are on camera and we're loving it. Log in now at realnewstalk.com. Don't wait another minute.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Mainly sunny skies today with daytime highs approaching 52. Winds out of the west 10 to 20 miles per hour. Lows level off around 38 tonight. Mainly cloudy skies expected. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times tomorrow. Highs level off around 52. Mainly sunny skies Sunday with daytime highs approaching 51. 60 Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 43 degrees.
92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, where the news comes first. Get the WGMD app online today. Jake Smith, mid-mornings on WGMD.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. At work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text MAIN to 321321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text MAIN to 321321. That's MAIN to 321321.
Based on hundreds of 5-star reviews, Gunshooter Enterprises is proud to be rated by Delaware locals as their favorite gun shop. When you walk through the door at Gunshooter Enterprises in Millsboro, you'll be met with a knowledgeable staff and respect. Customers love the transparent pricing of new and used inventory, the in-house experienced repair team, and the firearms training classes. Visit them in downtown Millsboro with plenty of free public parking at gunshooter.com or call 302-663-0838.
Don't miss the Health, Fitness, and Leisure Expo Saturday, March 8th at Cape Henlopen High School in Lewis. Admission is free and 100 exhibitors will present their products and services from 9 to 4. BB Healthcare will be providing free health screenings and some exhibitors will be offering gifts and prizes. For complete information on health, fitness, leisure, and home products, don't miss the free Health, Fitness, and Leisure Expo Saturday, March 8th at Cape Henlopen High.
Tune in this Monday at 9:20 as I'll be live with Dr. Tiny as we discuss the housing segment. Learn how we can create housing options that work for everyone in our community. This Monday at 9:20.
Tune in this Saturday at 8:30 a.m. to listen to our featured Ask the Expert guest from PAM Health. With 3 locations in Delaware, Dover, Milford, and Georgetown. Learn all about what the Pamely has to offer this Saturday at 8:30 a.m.
Women Supporting Women's Bingo is back. The 23rd annual Pink Ribbon Bingo will take place on Thursday, March 20th at the Willards Lions Club on Hearn Street. Doors open at 4:30. The fun starts at 6 p.m. Tickets are $35 in advance, $40 day of, but limited seating will be available. You must be 18 to enter and no outside food or alcohol is permitted. For more information or tickets, go to the community calendar under the Extras tab at thetalkofdelmarva.com.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
We return with our panelist, David Zier, the host of Breaking Point on Real America's Voice News. Breaking Point airs tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. David, we all remember last week, President Trump had a meeting with U.S. governors at the White House, and there's a little dust-up with the governor of Maine. But we really should have known that something fishy's going on in Maine. And you pointed out to me yesterday that Maine is hiding gender issues from parents. What in God's name is going on in Maine?
Well, it's your typical, scenario up there, and Trump's threatening federal funding up there. They have school districts up there, I think 57 maybe out of the 192 school districts in Maine are withholding gender dysphoria information from the parents in the school districts. Now, I spent a lot of time on the road in New Hampshire for the primaries in 2019, 2020, the general election, the primaries last year, probably 15 times. And I can't tell you how many people crossed the border into Maine to complain to me that the schools don't allow parental rights at the top of their agenda. Same in New Hampshire. You got a wafy, pink, purplish legislature. And the parents are very upset about this. I just had Elena Barbera on. I know you had her on.
Oh, she's a fantastic guest. Fantastic.
And she's a dynamo. But according to documents reviewed by the Federalist, obtained by the Parents Defending Education through public records, a significant portion of Maine school districts are hiding critical medical and social information from parents. If they are unwilling to allow their children to transition genders. So even if you say no, it appears that they're doing this anyway. And the gender ideology in K through 12 in the school district there is, publicly withholding, information. They're public about it and about, men competing in women's sports. Now, Newsom is centered on that now because he wants to run for president and wants the Clinton-esque moderation to the right.
He's had a miraculous come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, and but they also found that this behavior by Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, has resulted in a federal rights investigation over the state allowing boys to compete, in girls' sports. $250 million, I think, is at stake there. So there's a lot going on up there. But listen, the state legislatures across the United States only moved 0.7% towards the red in this past election. So there might have been a mandate on the presidential and a little bit in Congress and the Senate. But on the state levels, you still have all these states with very liberal agendas. It's going to be a dogfight.
Wow. Again, if you're a parent today and you don't push for school choice, get your kids out of public schools, that's on you, in my estimation. David, we see Democrat judges, Obama judges, Biden judges, Clinton judges in some cases, continuing to rule against President Trump. Can we now admit, do you think, that Trump made a mistake with Amy Coney Barrett? What do you think?
Well, a couple of people, right? Maybe. So I think that's the case. But, you have these lower courts. I was with John Eastman the other day from the Eastman Dilemma, Trump's attorney challenging the results of 2020, still being prosecuted even after Fani Willis.
John's a great man. He is. I've had him on the show. He is a great man.
Yeah, he's great. And, we were talking the other day about, these lower courts. I mean, they're not acting according to the Constitution. And we have activist courts at the lower levels that are coordinating with each other to foil Trump. So maybe it's bigger than the Supreme Court. But, I think Trump's still got 4 years left. So there's going to be a lot going on here. I think this country, just like Obama did, is going to be radically transformed, but maybe in a better direction.
Well, Obama, he told the nation that after the midterms, I've got a phone and I've got a pen. And if Trump were to say that, they're already calling him king and dictator and everything else. He can't say I have a phone and a pen because they would take him to task. They didn't take Barry Soetoro to task, did they?
No, but I think that the Trump campaign, what I saw on the ground versus 2016 and 2020, especially in Iowa and other places, their ground game is phenomenal. They have 9 years of data mining right now that they can share with Republican candidates running in all of these counties. And you saw a swing in every county in the United States towards Trump and a big gains in the swing states, right? So I think the primaries are going to be on for, weak Republican candidates. But there's going to be challenges. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump has a relatively successful midterm election that can help keep the Senate and the Congress red.
Based on what happened Tuesday night, I would say that these are not going to be normal midterms, if I may use that phrase, David.
Yeah, I mean, only time's going to tell here, but you see oil at $66 a barrel yesterday. We're talking about energy booms, refilling the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, an energy boom in Oklahoma. And you know, one thing, Jake, we got to really pay attention to, which is incredible, are these 1 to 35 megawatt underground nuclear reactors, one in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, 35 megawatts. A typical plant is a terabyte, 300 megawatts to a terabyte of nuclear power. So we're going to see a big gains in nuclear. We're going to see more exports out of Louisiana for natural gas. Asia is going to be dependent on LNG. Europe, you're going to see lower energy prices, which will reflect, I think, by next year at this time, if we're not at war with somebody, the United States is going to be thriving heading into those midterms.
And also, it will mean less money for Russia to wage war, right?
Yeah, listen, Trump's reaching out to Putin and telling him to, back off right now, and now there's video of 400 Russian bodies and body bags in a warehouse. And, they've taken heavy losses. So, and again, I don't support what Putin did taking Crimea. They want a warm water port. They took advantage of Biden. They always do it when a Democrat's in office. But maybe now it's time that we're going to have some type of resolution here. I can't see that Putin will drag this out too much longer unless he wants to go to World War III. Because if he pisses off Trump, he'll go back to NATO and say, let's do this. You know what I mean? I don't think Trump is going to tolerate another year of 100,000 deaths or whatever.
No question about it. No question about it, David. Last question. We just found out yesterday that the Biden regime gave John Podesta, remember John Podesta?
Yes.
Billions of dollars for an environmental charity led by Democrats that was founded only 5 months earlier and received $7 billion in U.S. taxpayer dollars. When is John Podesta going to face justice, do you think?
No, is anybody going to? I mean, look at the White House from Rhode Island and his wife getting all that money for the environmental grants and all this stuff. And, they gave out $20 billion to environmental justice and green credit groups that had, I don't even think they registered with the IRS.
But David, it's money laundering. It's money laundering, isn't it?
I think in essence, a lot of this is. And I think, look at the $350 billion or so that might be unaccounted for in the Ukraine as well. I mean, this is the game, but, this isn't limited to just Democrats. There was a lot of Republican consultants in Ukraine, too, for a long time. Yep. But Kamala Harris handed over a check for $7 billion in Maryland to the Climate United Fund. It doesn't even appear in the IRS charities database and no federal filing. So, I mean, I can't prove that it's money laundering, but I'm sure there's going to be oversight and other things. We have a lot of time to clean the air. We have a new Clean Air Act coming into effect.
Yes, all the flatulence is going to dissipate, don't you think, David?
Clean the Air Act.
Now, David, one of our producers, Bob, in the chat room said, maybe I misheard David's ear say terabyte. I know he meant terawatt in regard to nuclear power. Okay, so Bob's an engineer, so he's going to correct us when we're wrong about that.
Yeah, I'm stuck in Dropbox mode.
Remember, my friends, tomorrow, 8 o'clock, Real America's Voice News, Turning Point, with our good friend David Zier. David, thank you.
Breaking Point. Thank you, Jake, so much.
What did I say? Breaking Point. What did I say?
Point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Breaking Point. See, I'm at the breaking point already. David, thanks, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Appreciate that. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too. You're watching Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday is underway. Jeffrey Lord will be joining us in just a couple of moments. We're going to talk history with Jeffrey Lord, among other things, and Al Green as well. Stay with us.
Delmarva is 92.7 WGMD Rehoboth Beach and 98.5 WUSX Seaford.
Trump assassin is back in court this hour. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, and the president is following the case against Ryan Ruth closely.
He had 6 cell phones. That's a lot of cell phones. And a couple of them had some strange markings on them. So, yeah, I want to find out.
Fox's Dana Marie McNichols outside the court in Fort Pierce, Florida.
Other evidence listed in court documents include a notebook with pages of names and numbers pertaining to overseas locations.
Now, that attempt was thwarted 2 months after the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, left then-candidate Trump with a grazed, bloodied ear.
Ruth was spotted with an assault rifle waiting 12 hours along that fence line of Trump International Golf Course last September. Law enforcement arrested him after he fled the scene.
We expect to hear from President Trump in the next few minutes, reacting to the jobs report showing an increase in hiring last month, but also a slight rise in the unemployment rate. He just talked about Iran in an interview with Maria Bartiromo for the Fox Sunday Morning Future Show.
You said they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Yeah. Well, there are 2 ways Iran can be handled, militarily or you make a deal. I would prefer to make a deal, because I'm not looking to hurt Iran.
The president says he told Iran's supreme leader in a letter, if the U.S. has to use our military, it'll be a terrible thing for them. The president also posted on Truth Social this morning he's strongly considering sanctions and tariffs on Russia for continuing to pound Ukraine on the battlefield with a new round of U.S.-Ukraine peace talks set for Tuesday. We're still waiting on the Trump executive order that aims to eliminate the Department of Education. Its Secretary Linda McMahon tells Fox that
local school boards, that governors and teachers and parents are really the ones that are involved mostly in their children's education.
Democrats may block eliminating the department in Congress, saying ending federal programs would hurt schools and students. In about 7 hours in South Carolina, a condemned murderer who beat his ex-girlfriend's parents to death in 2001 will be the first killer in 15 years in the U.S. to face a firing squad. They'll put a hood over Brad Sigmund's head and a target over his heart, the executioner's bullet. America's listening to Fox News.
When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money? A bigger house? Maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically? How you wake up each day? How you sleep? What activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, it doesn't just mask pain temporarily. It helps reduce or even eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. So give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. And it just takes a phone call. 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Wherever you're hurting, in 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4.
The station Delaware and Maryland turns to for local news. Here is another Delmarva News Update here on 92.7 WGMD, WGMD.com, and the WGMD app.
I'm Jerry Lademan in the Talk of Delmarva newsroom. The Army Corps of Engineers has signed off on a permit to rebuild the Key Bridge. Approval gives the Maryland DOT the permission to go forward on the bridge that was brought down by a ship almost a year ago. 6 people died. There's already been some preliminary work on the bridge foundation, and the in-water portion of the build could start as soon as this fall. The project will cost more than $2 billion by the time it's done in 2028. Local business leaders say any tariff increase, even if it's lifted quickly, would hit the local economy. Head of the Salisbury Chamber of Commerce, Bill Chambers, tells WMDT-TV that some prices of imports have already gone up and that there's already been damage to the economy. Property taxes in Wicomico County could go down under a plan promoted by County Council member Chip Bertino. Bertino says the county shouldn't balance its books in the backs of people who own property. Bertino thinks it would be reasonable to drop the tax rate by 1 to 5 cents. He says additional county revenue that comes in should go to taxpayers, not simply fund more government programs. Delaware Senator Chris Coons backing a bipartisan plan to change the country's biggest rental assistance program. Coons, along with Republican Kevin Kramer of North Dakota, says the measure would make it easier for low-income people to get Section 8 housing vouchers and to attract more landlords to accept those vouchers. Senator Coons says the country needs to help people find and keep affordable housing and support those who provide it.
WGMD AccuWeather.
Partly sunny with a breeze this afternoon, the high 51. Tonight, partly cloudy, 37 inland, 42 at the beach. Saturday, mostly sunny, increasingly windy, though, the high 50. On Sunday, partly sunny, the high then 49. Marine forecast bringing the wind from the west at 10 to 20 knots today, and seas 3 to 6 feet. Visibility generally unrestricted. A west-southwest wind at 8 to 16 knots tonight. Seas 2 to 4 feet. More on these and other stories, you can visit talkofdelmarva.com.
Don't get frantic. Call Atlantic.
No need to bundle up in jackets and heavy sweaters around the house. With Atlantic Refrigeration, you'll be able to feel comfortable while saving money on your heating bill. Hi, this is Dave Jones. With great financing available, now's the time to take advantage of a new Trane heating and cooling system. Let us show you how we can reduce your energy bill up to 50%. Call Atlantic Refrigeration today, your independent Trane dealer, at 302-856-9300. Or find us online at atlanticrefrigeration.com, because it's hard to stop a Trane.
Subject to credit approval, see dealer for details.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
You are connected 24/7 to your News Talk America at realnewstalk.com. You are listening to your anchorman, Jake Smith, on your News Talk America. Mike Bradley and the WGMD morning team, honoring and working hard to follow in the footsteps of some of the best that came before on Delmarva Morning Radio, including Johnny Williams, Bob Smith, Bill Phillips, C.R. Hook, and Mike and Sandy. Mike and the team values the radio history here on the peninsula and is committed to continuing the great tradition here on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, the talk of Delmarva.
Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. We're waiting for Jeffrey Lord to join the panel. A couple of things I wanted to mention. First off, President Trump has placed a call to Vladimir Putin today, urging him to get more active in the peace process with regard to the war with Ukraine. President Trump has also said if Putin doesn't get on the peace train, so to speak, there will be sanctions slapped on Russia. Now, you may have heard Russia sanctions as long as you've been on this earth. I certainly have. Russia sanctions never work. Russia always finds a means to work around those sanctions. So I just don't see that as being leverage. But who knows? Maybe Vladimir Putin's economy is so messed up right now. It needs a lot of help that the war is obviously not doing any good for. But the fact of the matter is, I don't see those sanctions happening. Jeffrey Lord is joining us right now. Our good friend Jeffrey Lord, who is host of the Word of the Lord podcast. You can hear it on Spotify, Amazon Music, and other platforms. Jeffrey is a frequent contributor to Newsmax, a former advisor to President Reagan, and his latest opinion piece at the American Spectator, Al Green Sabotages Democrats. How did he do that, Jeffrey?
Oh, man. You can't make this stuff up. And, I'm old enough to remember a day where a speech from the President of the United States, whomever that might be, was greeted respectfully. It's not that people everywhere in the chamber agreed with him, but, they didn't make a scene. Well, when you've got this guy doing this, and you add to this, the American people become aware that in the gallery sits a 13-year-old young man with brain cancer, who wants to be a Secret Service agent, and wow, and they basically don't stand when this kid's situation is announced, and then the other people, Laken Riley's mother and sister, and all of this.
And what about the volleyball player that had the ball smashed in her face and her cheekbone and eye socket shattered? She was there. They didn't clap for her either. I thought they were the party of women, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I mean, this is so bad that I think they did themselves some real damage here, because all of this was live and in living color, and you can believe it that Republican operatives all across the country are going to be running clips of that in fall campaigns in 2026, not to mention 2028.
And Green was waving his cane in a threatening manner just a few feet from the President of the United States. Where was the Secret Service?
Yeah. Well, you get into these jurisdictional things there, and what you've got are the Capitol Police,
Right.
and they were on there, and I think they were in action, escorting the guy off the floor, um, as duly instructed by Speaker Johnson.
Jeffrey, we're going to talk about a little bit about the similarities between President Trump's foreign policy approach and that of Richard Nixon. But I just saw the report, you probably have as well, that Trump told Vladimir Putin by phone today that you've got to get on the peace train or I'm going to slap sanctions. Now, have you ever heard of sanctions against Russia working? They always find a way to work around those. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, well, I'm a little skeptical, but Trump doesn't fool around with things. He's not going to fool around with Vladimir Putin any more than he's going to fool around with anything or anyone else. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least that he would find some way to effectively make known his displeasure with Vladimir Putin not being on, as Cat Stevens used to call it, the peace train.
Yes, that's right. Cat Stevens, who's now like Muhammad something or other, he converted to Islam, and
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
as happens, just by chance, I realized I had a CD in the car the other day, so I started playing, and there he was, sounding just like he did when I was in college.
I actually have the Peace Train album, which I believe the name of the album was Teaser and the Firecat. I think that was the name of the album. I still have the album.
Yeah. Wow.
So
that's pretty amazing.
Should I put it on eBay, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I would look around. I have a whole collection of albums and 45s down in the basement. And I am aware that some of these things are valuables, the Beatles' White Album and that sort of thing. So I just have to bestir myself to go through this stuff.
Me too. You got to find the time. One of our producers, Wolf, asked of you, Jeffrey, can the Democrat Party survive without major rebranding? What say you, sir?
Well, I think they're going to have a problem unless they do. And let's remember that they did this once before.
Yep.
That they went out on the far left with George McGovern, and they stayed out there on the far left, and then somebody named Bill Clinton came along and persuaded them that they had to get back. And if you remember, one of the key incidents there was a singer in the day.
Sister Sojourn.
Sister Soldier. Yeah.
Heck, right. How could you forget her, Jeffrey?
that is right. And she was so way out there and all of this sort of thing. And Bill Clinton did not hesitate to call her out.
Well, she called him a racist.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what she did. She called him a racist, right?
And in calling her out, he pretty well established that the Democratic Party just can't keep going down this road all the time. And of course, we know the rest of the story with him. So
yeah, I mean that may have actually given him the presidency, other than the fact that Ross Perot was a third-party candidate that year as well.
Right. It was fairly amazing, and at that point, I was in the Bush administration working for the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Jack Kemp.
Right.
And
a man who should have been president.
Yes. And then all of a sudden you find out the day after the election that, you're out of a job.
Yeah.
So, and you literally get a letter, I did and all of my colleagues did, that says, in essence, Dear Jeffrey, thank you so much for your government. You've done a wonderful job. Be out by noon, January 20th.
Well, my great-grandfather was a gardener at the White House under President Benjamin Harrison.
Wow.
And when Harrison lost to Grover Cleveland, who was the last president to do what President Trump did, have two inconsecutive terms, right?
Right.
Unconsecutive. So he got that letter too, and he and my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my great-uncles, they packed up and moved back to Brooklyn.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the way it works. And Benjamin Harrison himself was somewhat interesting because he was the grandson of President William Henry Harrison.
Right, correct.
Who was the hero of one of the Indian Wars or something, and the Battle of Tippecanoe and his vice presidential candidate who succeeded him in the White House, John Tyler, and their motto was Tippecanoe and Tyler too.
Now, Tyler was aboard a ship on the Potomac that blew up, and he was almost killed. I just heard that yesterday. I had never heard that story before.
Yes, that is absolutely right. It was interesting, and his historical importance is that when Harrison died,
yeah,
it was the first time a president had died in office, and there were people who said to Tyler, "Well, you're the acting president now," and Tyler's response was, "No, I am not the acting president. I am the president." And
yeah.
he set the model that when a president dies in office, his vice president becomes the president of the United States. They're not there in an acting capacity.
Jeffrey, I have a question posted from our producer, Bob, directed to you. Do you think foreign policy could be President Trump's Achilles heel? Do you trust Marco Rubio as Secretary of State to support Trump policies, not undercut them? P.S. I don't. And I guess it all boils down to the fact that Marco Rubio always was an ally of Mitch McConnell. Can you trust Marco Rubio? Do you?
Well, I think so, because I mean, my feeling is Marco Rubio has a self-interest in this.
Okay.
And if American foreign policy fails in some fashion, he, as
right.
is true with most secretaries of state, will be
reflects poorly, yeah,
in some fashion. And I think Marco Rubio still wants to be president, but he's not going to be president if his conduct as Secretary of State is seen
suspect.
as undermining President Trump. So I think he's got every incentive to do the right thing.
Jeffrey, we have to take a break. We're going to talk Richard Nixon in history when we come back. I always love talking history with you. We're going to talk more history with Jeffrey Lord in just a moment. Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday continues.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Highs level off around 52 this afternoon under mainly sunny skies. West winds 10 to 20 miles per hour. Lows around 38 tonight. Mainly cloudy skies expected. A blend of clouds and sun tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 52. Low 50s Sunday, turning much warmer on Monday with highs in the upper 50s. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 44 degrees.
The Wendy Bell Show, Sunday, noon to 3 on 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva. You're listening to WGMD.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
Access all levels of your home. Bruno engineers and manufacturers of our stair lifts in Wisconsin, USA, to ensure an optimal fit and ride. Experience the ultra-smooth, quiet ride of a Bruno Elite Curve stair lift. Bruno is veteran-owned and founded. They handcraft all of their stair lifts. 3 top considerations: handcrafted in USA, 400-pound lift capacity, limited lifetime warranty. Bruno stair lifts at Bell House Medical, home of the Master Grab Bar. See us at mastergrabbar.com.
You're invited to First Baptist Church in Georgetown this Sunday morning at 10:30. I'm Pastor Woody Bates, and we'd love for you to come along as we dive into our inspiring series, Journey with Jesus. We're exploring the book of Luke, verse by verse, and discovering incredible ways Jesus can impact your life. Visit us in Georgetown on southbound 113. Come as you are. There's a hot cup of coffee and a seat safe for you at First Baptist Church, 20304 DuPont Boulevard.
You might not catch a leprechaun, but you still can strike gold. Bring your
Carter Meineke for all your car needs. We could be your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Doing car care right in Lewis and in Milford.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD. Delmarva's Choice, WGMD.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Back with our good friend Jeffrey Lord. Jeffrey's latest opinion piece in the American Spectator. Al Green sabotages the Democrats. Well, the Republicans don't have to do much. They just have to wait for the Democrats to self-destruct. Jeffrey, I never thought that we would see the Democrat Party in this condition. I've never seen it in my lifetime. You and I are similar age. We've never seen this before. It's kind of nice to see, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is kind of amusing, I have to say. The thing that it just amazes me is how stupid they are. Literally. I mean, stupid. You don't do something like that. You don't behave like that on national television with the President of the United States. I mean,
yes, and can I just interrupt you for a second? If this happened during the day on C-SPAN, no one would have seen it.
That's right.
This happened on national TV where 27% of independents polled by CBS said they liked the speech. 20% of Democrats said they liked the speech. 76% polled overall. This was CBS. They did some tremendous damage, more damage than Jasmine Crockett has done in the last year.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it is just amazing. And you know, the very fact that they're all slapping one another on their backs thinking they've done a great job.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
crazy.
Jeffrey, we're hearing a lot about China threatening the United States after President Trump said we've got to build more ships because China is out building our own U.S. Navy. China threatened the United States with war. I don't think China can afford an arms race. Back in 1986, 1987, the Soviet Union could not afford an arms race with the United States. But now we are starting to see, according to Neil Ferguson, I sent you the opinion piece in the New York Post, that he claims that Donald Trump's foreign policy is starting to resemble Richard Nixon, that it's Nixon 2.0, Jeffrey. What do you say? How do you analyze this?
Yeah, you know, as I think I've mentioned to you, back in, and I have this memo in front of me, a memo I wrote to myself on July 23rd, 1987, after the Reagan White House political staff was invited to a hotel in Washington to meet with President Nixon, then former President Nixon. Exactly. We got off the elevator in this hotel, and then took a few steps and to head down this corridor, and the door was open at the end of the corridor, and he was supposed to be in there, but instead he came out from a side door to go into that room, and we could see the very familiar figure of the guy from behind with his hands clasped together and his and all this.
The quintessential Nixon.
We walk into the room, and he is standing at a window looking out, and he turns when we come in, comes over, big smile, puts his hand out and says, "You didn't all go to Harvard, did you?"
You didn't all go to Harvard.
It was amazing, but we had, I don't know, an hour and a half or so with him. And one of the things that, in terms of foreign policy, I look back and see what I wrote. He talks about foreign policy and everything. And I say that how he discussed this stuff. He was educating us as to the dangers of the latest Soviet offer on intermediate missiles. He pointed out that if all proposals were accepted, the danger of nuclear war would not be reduced. What the Russians are trying to do, he said, is disarm Germany. Does this sound familiar? They don't care about the British or the French. It's the Germans. They're afraid of the Germans and have always been. We can't allow the Germans to get rid of their Pershings missiles. What the Russians are trying to do through their different proposals is disarm Germany. That's why we have to be careful. Gorbachev is very, very good a master, and he goes on, etc. But to think all these years later,
How
the
about
Russians
that?
and the Germans, it's still the case. And he says they've always been afraid of them. Nothing has changed.
Now, years ago, when Ehrlichman got out of prison, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It had to be 1979, 1980. For the Watergate scandal, he got out of prison, and he wrote a book, and he came to the radio station I was working at, Jeffrey. And I wasn't doing interviewing at that time. I was just filling in, and I was doing producing. And I was just sitting, listening to him talk to the news director who was conducting the interview, and he was talking about Nixon's intelligence and how he would say Nixon would just sit down and write out the situation in the world, everything that was going on politically, militarily. I mean, Ehrlichman, he obviously didn't like Nixon after Watergate, and he spoke that, but he spoke very well in terms of his intelligence and how smart he was. Did you get that? Did you get that sense from President Nixon when you met him?
Yes, I wrote it down. I'll read it to you.
Yeah, please.
Impressions. Clearly, here was a man of great brilliance. The many sides of Richard Nixon that have been discussed or over-discussed and analyzed for years were all briefly displayed. The sensitivity to the elitism of the Eastern establishment. You didn't all go to Harvard, did you? was his very first question. The vindictiveness when discussing Robert Bork, then Reagan's nominee for the Supreme Court, who was highly controversial.
Right.
And the hypocrisy of his liberal critics and how we could put them in their place. He punched the air with his left fist and exclaimed, "I love it." He was a political strategist. He was the world leader, saying things like, De Gaulle told me in '59, and he was also the tough anti-communist. Quote, stop referring to the Sandinistas, call them what they are, the communist government of Nicaragua. And on he went. I mean,
Wow.
It was a fascinating thing. And as I say, I was so impressed that when I got back to my office in the White House,
Yeah.
the first thing I did was sit down and write this all out. It's a 7-page memo to myself.
Wow.
On White House
And-
stationery.
And you kept it all these years later.
Perfectly preserved.
Now, in case you're wondering why President Trump is being compared to Nixon 2.0, the situation that Nixon had, he didn't have a good relationship with old Europe. He did not. Many of the Europeans were reeling from the events where Nixon felt that his allies did not stand with the United States. On the 15th of August, 1971, Nixon went on TV to announce, listen to this, a 10% surcharge or tariff on all imports, a supposedly temporary suspension of the convertibility of the dollar into gold, and a 90-day wage and price freeze, which we all remember that very much, Jeffrey. The Nixon shock was in response to a run on gold by European holders of dollars, as well as a rise in U.S. inflation. But it had a geopolitical effect. Nixon's announcement a month earlier on July 15th that he would be visiting communist China the following year was a big shock in Japan and Taiwan as the dollar devaluation a month later. Wow. How similar are these situations today?
Yeah, it really is amazing. And, you know, when I first got to know President Trump, when he was a private citizen, and I was up in his office in
Trump Tower.
Trump Tower.
Yeah.
And on the wall, I'm pretty sure I saw a picture of himself with Richard Nixon. And,
he loved that. Well, you saw that article. Trump loved Nixon and felt that he was treated horribly, should not have resigned. And I love Nixon too. My first campaign that I ever worked on, I was 12 years old, and I was passing out Nixon bumper stickers in 1968.
Yeah.
So, you know, I felt very strongly about him, and I believed in him. And long after he left office, after my first child was born, I wrote him a letter. He was living in New York City with, I think, his daughter, Tricia at the time. She was living in New York City, if I'm not mistaken. So Nixon moved to New York.
Yeah.
And I wrote him a letter, and I told him, President Nixon, I have always been a big supporter of yours. And my first child was born. Just want to let you know my children are going to know what a great president you were. And I got a lovely letter back from him, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I got some things myself. Let me.
Oh wow!
How's
Is that an afro? Did you have an afro in those days, Jeffrey?
Yeah, it was. My hair became very curly and up it went. So
I was wondering why he was going out of frame. He got his picture of President Nixon. That's what we do with props, right?
exactly, and I have another one over here, and then I have much later. He had a book come out or something, and I wrote him a note, and I got a handwritten thank you note back from him.
Wow.
So it was, he was an amazing guy. My late mom, God bless her, she loved Richard Nixon, and she was just thrilled.
Wow.
And I mentioned this to her because we lived in Northampton, Massachusetts at the time. She was executive assistant in the English and History department of Smith College, where all these liberal professors were, hugely anti-Nixon, and she would stick up for him and told this to Nixon. He loved it. Tell your mother.
Let me make it perfectly clear. Jeffrey, we've got a scat. Are you booked on Newsmax this weekend?
Yes, 7 and 8 tomorrow morning.
All right, we'll be watching. Thank you, my dear friend. Thanks so much for coming on. I love talking history with you, Jeffrey.
All right, good to talk to you.
All right, we'll be
Bye-bye.
talking to you soon as well. You're
Okay.
watching Your News Talk America. Stay with us. We're going to be talking tariffs in just a moment.
Here is the marine forecast from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center. A gale warning continues early today. Mostly sunny with highs approaching 50 degrees. And on the water, west winds will be strong, 10 to 25 knots, seas 4 to 6 feet. The current water temperature is 41 degrees. At Cambridge, high tide 10:15 a.m., low tide 5:20 p.m., high tide 10:31 p.m. And at Rehoboth Beach, low tide 8:07 a.m., high tide 1:55 p.m., low tide 7:59 p.m.
Welcome to the Delmarva Peninsula, and thanks for listening to 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Taylor Riggs, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks have been looking for direction after a brutal week. Investors are trying to assess the impact of the February employment report that registered better job growth than January, but weaker than expected. 151,000 new positions were created compared with the revised reading of 125,000 the month before. The unemployment rate rose slightly from 4% to 4.1%. Fed Chair Jerome Powell may have something to say about it as he addresses an economic conference at the University of Chicago today. Shares of Walgreens Boots Alliance up 7.5%. The Wall Street Journal says Walgreens is being sold to investment firm Sycamore Partners. And Gap shares up 13% after an upbeat holiday quarter. It also expects sales to improve this year. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosilda. Invested in you.
National security is at risk, and China controls most of the world's supply of antimony, a critical metal for military and defense technology. Military Metals Corp is taking action and securing a Western-controlled supply with projects in Europe and North America. Critical minerals are the backbone of modern defense. Now's the time to pay attention. The stock trades on the OTC under ticker MILIF. Call your broker today or go to www.militarymetalscorp.com to learn more.
Car Care Center Studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
We are waiting on our panelist, Michael DiLorenzo, to join us, and until he does, let me get to a couple of comments in the chat room. RealNewsTalk.com. Producer Wolf says, Delaware progressive Democrat blogs are exceptionally arrogant and stupid. Yeah, they are. I mean, I don't even look at them anymore, but when I used to monitor what they were saying, I used to like to read the crap that they were writing about me, Wolf, but you're right, they are. Wolf also, who's talked on this chat room a number of times about hydrokinetics. There's a local power generation plant here in southern Delaware that the Democratic communists have been trying to close for years. on the Indian River, and Wolf talks about the possibility that that plant could be turned into a hydrokinetic plant. That is something that let's hope it happens. President Trump, when it comes to energy, Wolf, is into anything. He's not against green energy, but only if it makes sense. And none of it makes sense right now. When technology gets a little bit better, perhaps it will make sense, but not now, unfortunately. So there are comments in the chat room. If you want to go on, you can go on to realnewstalk.com. That's the website, realnewstalk.com. We do have, Bob, I do have your question for Mr. DiLorenzo, and when he signs on, we'll get to it. Now, as you heard me talking to Jeffrey Lord, the situation with Russia, well, let me back up a little bit. Zelensky now, as soon as President Trump froze his arms shipments a couple of days ago, Zelensky was all in. Yep, let's do it. Let's get it done. We'll do the mineral rights deal, the whole thing. Now it's up to Putin to jump upon the peace train, the Cat Stevens peace train. Well, apparently now Putin's doing a wait and see, and President Trump doesn't want to wait and see. He wants both parties in the negotiating room and helping to and moderating and hammering out a peace agreement, or at the very least, initially, a ceasefire. So now Vladimir Putin seems to be, not very eager to talk peace. President Trump said, well, the fact is, you got to do something or I'm going to slap economic sanctions on you. Now, let's face it, because of the war, Russia's economy is a mess. So is China. China's economy is a mess, and they're helping to bail out the Russians. But we have a situation now where we are ratcheting up our exports of natural gas and other fossil fuel energy. When we get it on the open market, when we start selling it to Europe, such as Germany, the fact is they're not going to be buying as much energy from Vladimir Putin. And that's going to cut money that he usually earns from selling his energy to Europe quickly. It's going to happen. It's probably happening right now. And on top of that, Europe, which was buying a bulk of their energy, most of their energy from Putin, and then helping to subsidize the Ukraine war, makes no sense. But that's what was going on. So perhaps President Trump can twist the arm of Vladimir Putin to get him to recommit to getting to the negotiating table. What do you think? Those of you on dial right now, by Dial Producers, what do you think? All right, we're still waiting on our panelist, Mr. DiLorenzo. We're just going to take a quick break, and I'm going to reach out to the person who's responsible for him being here and see if we can hurry him up. And with that, we'll be back on Your News Talk America Digital.
For more information or to register for NAMI Walks, go to the community calendar under the Extras tab at thetalkofdelmarva.com. Calling all photographers. Genrec invites you to submit your best Delaware photos in 4 categories: people enjoying nature, watersheds, landscapes and waterways, wildlife and aquatic life, and hunting and fishing. This photo contest is open to all ages and all skill levels and seeks to highlight Delaware's outdoors through striking photography. Registration for the contest is now open, and the deadline to submit your picture is 4:30 on Tuesday, April 15th. For more information, go to the community calendar under the Extras tab at thetalkofdelmarva.com. The Talk of Delmarva wants to see your pictures and how you see Delmarva for the Talk of Delmarva's Picture of the Day. Sunrise to sunset, Eastern Shore or Western. Your pictures must be taken somewhere on Delmarva. Take your shot with a cell phone, tablet, or 35mm camera. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and where on Delmarva the picture was taken, even a backstory if you have one. Send your pics to media@WGMD.com, and we'll share your picture on the Picture of the Day at thetalkofdelmarva.com. In Sussex County, everyone is working hard to make sure that every veteran in the county has a safe place to call home. It's unacceptable for any man or woman who has served in our country's armed forces to sleep in shelters or on the street. Local landlords, your help is needed. If you're interested in renting to a veteran, sign up by listing your property at www.delawarehousingsearch.org or calling 1-877-428-8844. You'll find more information at WGMD.com. The second annual We the Veterans of Delaware Rally is Thursday, March 13th from 11:45 to 3 p.m. at Legislative Hall in Dover. National Commander of the American Legion, James LaCourciere, will address both the House and the Senate. The rally focuses on 2 bills. House Bill 1 to establish a Delaware cabinet-level position for Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and House Bill 31 protecting veterans from unaccredited service providers. For more information, go to the community calendar under the Extras tab at thetalkofdelmarva.com.
Salute the Troops is safely brought to you by your local gun tender, Stuart Jones at Delmarva Law Enforcement Supply. Salute the Troops honors the sacred memory of U.S. Army Reserve Private First Class William Lewis Lohman, who was born on November 8, 1944. Lohman was a draftee and began his tour in Vietnam on December 9, 1966. His military occupation or specialty was listed as Field Artillery Basic. Lohman was attached to 199th Light Infantry Brigade, 4th Battalion, 12th Infantry, E Company. On February 4, 1967, Private First Class Lohman was struck and killed by enemy small arms fire in Gia Dinh Province, South Vietnam. Salute the Troops honors the ultimate sacrifice of U.S. Army Reserve Private First Class William Lewis Lohman, for without his ultimate sacrifice, on behalf of freedom fighting in Southeast Asia, this nation could not. This nation would never have remained free. May this grateful nation never forget the ultimate sacrifice of U.S. Army Reserve Private First Class William Lewis Lohman. He is honored on the wall, panel 14E, line 118. Delmarva Law Enforcement Supply welcomes all, not just law enforcement. Visit and sit with Stuart to find the perfect custom firearm, ammo, apparel, gun safes, hunting gear, accessories, or to browse and find the perfect WeatherTech gear. Serving and saluting Delmarva for almost 2 decades. You can find them on Iron Branch Road in Dagsboro. Open Monday through Saturday. Just look for the banner that says Guns. Support your local gun tender today.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
It seems that on a daily basis we are barraged with economic news from the White House today. The first ever crypto summit is occurring, and who would have thought that that would have ever happened? And as you know, yesterday President Trump signed a 1-month pause on tariffs against Canada and Mexico as President Trump pushes our neighbors to the north and south to crack down on the flow of illegals and fentanyl. And with that, I want to welcome in our next panelist, Thomas J. DiLorenzo, who's an economic historian and president of the Mises Institute, a nonprofit organization that exists to promote teaching and research from the Austrian School of Economics and Individual Freedom, Honest History, and International Peace in the tradition of Ludwig von Mises and Murray N. Rothbard. He is the author of Hamilton's Curse, How Jefferson's Arch Enemy Betrayed the American Revolution and What It Means for Americans Today. And it's fair to say that Thomas Jefferson would not have been a fan of Keynesian economics, Thomas, right?
And that's certainly right. Yes, certainly right. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the first crypto summit at the White House today? President Trump has done a 180 on this. What do you think? You're an economic historian. Alexander Hamilton certainly would have been pro-crypto, would he?
Oh, yeah. Well, he would have been pro-government control of crypto. He would have been anti-crypto because, it started out as a way of having some sort of monetary unit that was not regulated and controlled by the state, like the greenback dollar is.
Yeah.
But so what it must be alarming to the proponents of cryptocurrency and the owners of cryptocurrency to see the federal government getting involved in it, because that's why they got involved in crypto to begin with.
That's a good point. Good point.
To get away from the government. And so I can remember, way back at the beginning of my career, testifying at the request of the Heritage Foundation at a hearing in D.C. in Congress, and the topic had to do with oil and the price controls on oil. Mm-hmm. And one of the senators, I believe it was the Senator Jake Garn, I don't know if he's even alive anymore.
Yeah, I remember him. I do remember him, Thomas.
If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, we would have a sand shortage. So that's why I think the people who are the advocates of cryptocurrency must be shaking in their boots today.
Well, it's going to be interesting. President Trump had not been in favor of crypto. Now he's in favor of crypto. So we shall see. What do you make of the use of tariffs by President Trump as leverage? He's putting tariffs on. He's taking them off. He's putting his left foot in. He's taking his left foot out. He's doing the hokey pokey when it comes to tariffs. What do you think?
Well, I think he's a masterful deal maker, and he's using the threat of tariffs as his leverage. Mm-hmm. And he's going to need more than that, though. I don't think that'll get old because, when you make a threat, you have to come through with it eventually, or else people won't believe the threat.
Right.
And they'll just ignore you. And especially with Canada, we import a lot of auto parts that are made in Canada,
right,
and then put into American cars.
And Mexico too, Thomas. A lot of our auto parts are made in Mexico as well.
Mexico too. So if we put a big tariff tax, and the tariffs are taxes, and I call it a tariff tax all the time because the average American, I think, doesn't really relate that this is a tax. They think it's something foreigners are going to pay, but that's not true. If we put taxes on foreign Mexican and Canadian auto parts,
right,
it's going to be more expensive to make cars by Ford and General Motors and so forth. And so it'll be bad for our car industry to do that. So it's good that he's suspended this for a month because he wants to bargain over closing the border. And that's good. I think that's a good use of the tariffs as a threat. But if he actually implements it, it would be economically bad news.
Now, there is talk that there will be some carve-outs for those things that are part of the USMC trade agreement. How will that work? How will those carve-outs work, and what items will be unaffected by the tariff tax, as you call it, that were part of the USMC negotiated by President Trump and his people back in 2017, 2018?
Well, that's a big mess. It's always something that will be determined by who has the most lobbying power.
Okay.
Whoever has the most lobbying clout and is willing to bribe members of Congress the most, with bribes that are euphemistically called campaign contributions. Isn't that a nice sounding word?
Yes, absolutely.
That's who will get the exemptions, and the others will be screwed if they're not. Not everyone can succeed, and so it won't be based on principle. It's never based on economic logic. It's political clout of the lobbying that goes on in Washington.
Now, the jobs numbers were released today. There were more, well, not as many jobs predicted were created. The unemployment rate went up, but I don't know if you've seen the numbers. Or we saw a little spike in unemployment. I'm not sure if that's related to Doge or not. What are you expecting with respect to the economy short term, President Trump's second term, sir?
Yeah, well, that number probably is a result of all the bureaucrats who have become unemployed in the federal government.
Right.
That's probably a big part of it. But what Trump is doing is, every business in America spends a part of every day complying with government regulations. Has nothing to do with being productive, serving their customers, paperwork, mandates, hiring lawyers to figure it all out for you. It's expensive and time consuming. If that can be reduced by 10% for what Doge is doing,
right,
that would be one of the biggest boosts in productivity in American economic history.
Really?
Just 10%. Yeah, we haven't seen anything like that in decades as far as productivity and improvements. The invention of the personal computer did something like that, and making us all more productive in what we do.
Oh, definitely.
And this would be similar if they keep going where they're going, and getting rid of layer after layer of bureaucracy. I think it is very promising that it can have a very good effect. And as far as tax cuts too, and the president's talking about tax cuts, you don't have to have the biggest tax cut in history. Trump always likes to brag, whatever he does is the biggest and best in history, whether it is or not.
Yeah.
Even his doctor, when the first time he was president, he gave him an exam, and he said he's the healthiest president in history to come in to go. But you don't have to do that. It's just sometimes a modest tax cut is enough to boost the economy, and so all of this deregulation is a de facto tax cut, because it frees up people in the workplace from complying with nonsensical, needless governmental edicts to actually getting to work and producing things.
Well, here's a question that one of our producers, Bob, put up on our dial board for you, Thomas, and that is, are President Donald J. Trump's Art of the Deal economic policies consistent with the Austrian School of Economics principles? Does that even matter? Trump's instincts worked during his first term. Will they work during his second term? I think that's a really good question. What say you, sir?
Yeah, well, his instincts as a business person are anti-tax,
right,
anti-bureaucracy, and that's certainly consistent with free market economics. And but also he wants more control over the Fed in his hands.
Yeah.
And that's central planning. That's socialism. And so he's sort of he thinks he can do better than the market. And I think the Fed ought to be abolished altogether. And we ought to return to a system of competing currencies like we had in the 19th century, and rely on private enterprise, private property, and competition in currencies. And I'll give you one anecdotal example.
Please.
There's a bank in New Orleans in the first half of the 19th century called the Citizens Bank of New Orleans. Merchants from Minnesota and elsewhere would float down the Mississippi River and sell their wares, their goods, their grain, or whatever, in New Orleans, and go back home with currency, paid in currency called the Dix, D-I-X, means 10 in French. And they would go home bragging that they had a pocket full of Dixies. They were called Dixies because this bank had a high reserve of gold and silver that it backed its currency with.
Oh, very
interesting. So the currency was very trustworthy, and it was widely used in Minnesota and all over America because it was trusted. And that's how the South became known as the land of Dixie. It was this currency issued
by
the bank.
That's a history lesson. Thank you.
That
$10
note was called the Dixie. It went from the Dix to the Dixie as people carried it around. And that's the system we had. But then during the Civil War, the National Currency Acts were passed, which created the monopoly money of the greenback dollar. And there were onerous taxes imposed on the Dix and other competing currencies issued by banks. And so competition among banks was abolished, and we had monopoly money ever since. And now, like every other industry, competition is competition. some are good competitors and some are not so good. And the way the banks competed was like the Dicks. If they had a high reserve ratio of banks, gold and silver back in those days, or today it would be just currency, that was trustworthy. But there were other banks that were run by people who thought they could sort of get away with legalized counterfeiting and make $10 million in loans if they had $1,000 in their reserve.
Sounds like USAID, Thomas.
Yeah. And so that sort of thing did happen, but you would be penalized as soon as the public got wind of that. They would immediately go and try to get their money out of that bank, and that bank would quickly go bankrupt. And so competition regulated, regulated the banking business.
Right.
And we didn't have to rely on a Donald Trump or a James Powell or anybody else, to be the sort of the Wizard of Oz of our monetary system.
Our guest is Thomas J. DiLorenzo, economic historian, president of the Mises Institute, a nonprofit organization that exists to promote teaching and research in the Austrian School of Economics. Now, you wrote an interesting book. I haven't read your book. I was reading a synopsis of it today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Hamilton's Curse, how Jefferson's archenemy betrayed the American Revolution and what it means for Americans today. We've got about 2 minutes remaining. Why don't you tell us about that book? It sounds fascinating.
Okay, well, one of the reasons why they have this corny play about Hamilton on Broadway,
which closed yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
The left has discovered that Alexander Hamilton was the real founding father of big government in America. And so that's one of the reasons why you have all the idolizing of Hamilton and the trashing of his nemesis, Thomas Jefferson. Who believe the opposite, that government is best which governs least.
Right.
So Hamilton, he was sort of the political water carrier of the big business interests in Philadelphia and New York and New England during his day, the Federalist Party. And what he stood for was high protectionist tariffs to protect mostly northern state manufacturers, such as they were during his time, from competition. What we today call corporate welfare for different businesses, and also a national bank run by politicians. And so he believed in basically more or less central planning of the economy, a crony capitalist system. And that's why Jefferson was his nemesis. Jefferson wanted competition, but he didn't want crony capitalism. And this system was basically the rotten British system that the Americans fought a revolution to secede from. Right. And Hamilton and his party wanted to bring that system to America. They thought that it's bad if you're on the paying end of that kind of a system. But if you're running the system and you're on the money collecting side of it, that's not such a bad thing after all. So they saw themselves as being the string pullers and the puppet masters of the economy. And they denigrated Adam Smith in his famous book, The Wealth of Nations, published in 1776. The year of the beginning of the revolution.
Yeah.
And so they knew about this. And Adam Smith's famous invisible hand about how the economy works just fine as long as we have law enforcement and peaceful relations among us. Pursuing wealth, the only way to make money is to serve your fellow man in the free market. Right. And Hamilton never understood that, I don't think. And he thought we needed the heavy hand of government to run the government. And that's why these leftists in New York City had this play on for so many years, idolizing Hamilton.
Yeah, and fortunately that play closed, so that is not going to be an issue anymore. Again, Hamilton's Curse, how Jefferson's archenemy betrayed the American Revolution and what it means for America today. The author and our panelist, Thomas J. DiLorenzo, economic historian and president of the Mises Institute. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on this morning and talking to us. We really learned a lot. One of my producers just said, wow, this was a very informative discussion. Thank you so much, sir. We got to have you back on.
My pleasure.
Thank you, and have a great day. Thank you. Well, we're going to wrap up your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. Thank you for spending time with us. Remember, you have a voice. Make sure your voice is heard loud and clear. Millie, you're home.
92.7 WGMD Rehoboth Beach and 98.5 WUSX Seaford, the talk of Delmarva.